guys, welcome back to my channel. Marina here, and as always, it's such a pleasure to come to you in another video. You guys, the bribe worked. As you can see, Afang has brought him here. Welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Marina. We live in Saskatoon in Canada, and on this channel we share information to make settling into life in Canada seamless for newcomers and foreign trained professionals. We also throw in vlogs to show us settling into life in Canada. So if this is content you know or you think you might be interested in, please do well to smash the subscribe button below and join our family. To the returning subscribers, welcome as always. Today we have Mr. Eteng on the channel. He's joining us after being away for so long. First place to start, where have you been?
I have been behind the scenes.
Doing what?
Just supporting you from behind. Like, not literally, but...
Anyway, in my last video, we asked him why he hasn't been on the channel, and he promised he was going to come back if we bribe him with Afang. We did, and now he's here. In today's conversation, guys, we're going to be talking about how we handle the conversation of bullying and discrimination in every form with our kids. I've gotten this question a number of times, and I just didn't know how to bring this conversation because it's not something I have a lot of personal experience with, but from the stories I've heard and from the things I've seen around us, we've put together a mechanism that works for us in our family, and I thought it would be nice to bring the mister on here so that we can share that with you guys. So if this is a conversation you think that you're interested in, go and grab some popcorn, grab a drink, relax, sit back, and let us have fun as usual, okay?
Why are you always bringing me to the tough conversations?
So you only want to come to conversations that just chummy and all ice cream? No, you will eat ice cream some days, other days you come and chew bone like today. Discrimination and bullying, especially amongst our kids, do you think that's a conversation that should be necessary for parents to have with children, especially parents who move from their home countries and move to like a country like Canada? Do you think it is necessary for parents to have those conversations with kids?
Yes, I think so. I think sometimes for parents, we're so focused on we adapting because you just land and you want to get a job, you want to get a house. So we're so focused on that sometimes we miss actually asking how they're coping, especially if we feel, yeah, they're young kids, they will adapt and all of that. So I think it's not too early to talk to your kids. There are probably certain ways that you talk with your older kids than you talk with your younger kids. For sure.
When we moved, our kids were 3 and 2. So that was not a conversation that we had to visit immediately, right? But as they got older and they started to notice differences, they'll come home sometimes and talk about, okay, everybody in my class looks different and things like that. That's why we knew that, okay, it was time to start to address some of these things as it was appropriate for their ages. Discrimination and bullying can take different forms. When we think about bullying, everybody thinks about the physical kind of bullying where somebody corners you or they are picking on you or people gang up and beat somebody up. But I think it can take different forms. There's also the psychological part where it's almost like somebody just continues to single you out and makes you the butt of like mean jokes or like nasty things to say. It can take different forms, and sometimes it's easy to teach bullying to say other kids are doing this to my kid. Sometimes it could be the caregivers that are the bullies. It could be the teachers that are the ones that single them out or pick them out. So it can take different forms.
I like how you brought that in, where bullying can take several forms. And I think sometimes it's just about ignorance too. Some kids are probably just ignorant. Some are actually mean, to be honest.
Kids say mean stuff.
And again, media sometimes doesn't portray things the way they are. So, for instance, I would ask if their house is where you come from, or how did you get here? Like, it's incredible. Anyway, So I think that's happened to our kids
it happened to our kid where somebody told him that, where you come from, there are no houses and there are wooden houses and there are no. I'm like, What? They are not what? See, and at a time like that, you really want to be careful the way you respond to things like that. You're not responding with emotion. Don't be emotional about in situations like that. Don't respond with emotions. Provide the facts, because that's what I did. I just brought out my laptop. Me and my son went on Google and said, show me houses in Lagos, Nigeria. Show me houses in Abuja, Nigeria. Show me houses. I put different places in the country and let him see it himself. Like, so are those wooden houses? Does this house not look nicer than the house we live in? And he saw some of the houses and was like, Mom, these are mansions. I'm like, exactly the point. So next time when he goes to school and somebody tells him there are no houses where you live, guess what? He's armed with the facts to go back and say you have no idea what you're talking about. In fact, you don't know the half of it. It's actually happened because he went back and provided that information and came back and said people's mouths were open. He went on school in the library and went on Google and showed people. Like, so are you going to come back to him next time and come and say there are no houses in Nigeria? No. You know, you arm them with the facts in situations like that, because more than half the time, most of the things that the kids say, it's on the basis of ignorance. And like you said about the media, mainstream media hasn't done a very great job in how some parts of Africa are portrayed. You know, so this picture everybody has is if you see a black person, they are fleeing from poverty, they are fleeing from war. So all these things come together, influences how our kids can be treated in school sometimes. And that's what results to bullying and discrimination and those stereotypes that we should be talking to them about and how they can deal with it. So how do we deal with these conversations? What would you say we're doing consciously to talk to our kids about these things, the possibilities that bullying can happen and discrimination can happen? How are we tackling that?
I think, first of all, we had to start with us not being put in that same position where we're influencing our kids over a certain demographic. And in the sense, we had to teach them, you know, be very entertaining to the culture and the indigenous culture here, right? So, you know, those conversations where things were open to, you know, there'll be questions around why did this happen to the indigenous people, and we had to be open to answering those things, right? So not only are we being a positive influence in, you know, checking how they respond to those things, but how they themselves react to situations like that when they're in. So one of the things we're very conscious about is, you know, you pick up your kids from school, you ask them how their day was, and like, oh, Daddy was fine, it was good, and then you guys are cool, but we've become more intentional to say, you know what, so your day was good. If there was one thing you could do to change how your day went to make it better, what would that thing be? Mm-hmm. Right? And then they go like, oh, that's true, you know what, I actually had a bad day today, but this is what I did. And if I had a chance, I would do this differently. I think it's some of those things that have helped us catch a few very subtle feelings that all isn't well.
Yeah. Ask specific questions. Instead of saying, how was your day? Fine. How was school today? All you hear is good, until you start to ask specific questions. For me, I try to take it to so how were you, who showed you kindness today? In what way did you show kindness?
Exactly.
Was anybody mean to you? Were you mean to anybody? Exactly. Did you get into trouble? Were you able to, just specific questions to check how their days went? And from asking those questions specifically like that, like he said, there were a couple of things we were able to uncover to say, okay, no, that doesn't sound right. Or this is becoming a pattern. Or we notice that every day there are repeated patterns of this particular kind of behavior, this kind of action towards you. Like, what can we do differently about that? And we took it up. Okay, and that brings us to the next thing. If there are any concerns, you will need to take it up. Because when you have these conversations with your kids to say, hey, how do you handle, how was your day today? And you discover that something is going on, or this particular person keeps saying this to me, keeps speaking on me. Now, there's a difference between when a kid is just trying to be mean from a place of ignorance, or just saying nasty things because that's what they have been told or that's what they have heard. It's very different when it now comes to them actually saying things that poke the child. You know, like one day my son came home and said somebody told him that his skin was ugly because it was dark. Yeah. So that is no longer just mean, that is now poking at a particular spot. Yeah. Even though I still told my son what to say, armed him with what to say in a situation like that.
I remember that.
I can't say it on camera.
that discussion was for like 30 minutes. I'm like, what?
I actually, basically what I did with that conversation was just Teach him about melanin again, to say this is what melanin is doing for you. This is how it protects you. So it's not something to be ashamed of. It's something to be proud of. There were other ways that I put it that, I mean, can only work for me and my son. So you have to find one that works for you. Let me not come and be arrested. Anyway, I armed him in that conversation, but that's definitely something to pay attention to. So if there are kids who are constantly picking on your kid and saying things like that, it will be a good time to take it up. Take it up with the class teacher, take it up with the head teacher, just to let them know that, okay, I don't know what the conversations around things like this are, but it might be worth it to reinforce in school that it's not okay to pick on people or poke them on the basis of race. Take it up with the school. Don't be afraid to go to the school. You want to really be careful the way you take it up, because it's not an us against them situation. That's not how you want to approach it. Because at the end of the day, education is a partnership between the school and you. The child is like the core focus. So if you feel like there's anything that's happening that takes away that child's ability to learn in a safe, non-threatening environment, you want to take that up. Not like fight, go and have it as a conversation, but you want to make sure you're following up. If you talk to the head teacher, you want to follow it up with an email to say, hey, following the conversation we had, these are the action items and these are what my expectations are. If you're not satisfied, there are avenues for you to escalate it. But basically what we're trying to say is think about it like it's a partnership, and you're doing it because your child's interest is what the first priority is. So it's not an us against them situation, it's a partnership. So when you take it up, don't take it up in a way that now puts more targets on your kids, so that what you're trying to do doesn't become counterproductive.
One of the other things that you can try to do is be more involved in the affairs of the school, right? Because I think that way you're able to see how the kids or your kid interacts with other kids. You know, sometimes we wish as parents that we could actually go to the school and
just be fly on the wall, right?
How they are, right? Because you know, sometimes you're always thinking, oh, my kids are getting the wrong end of the stick. But what if they're the ones actually doing it as well?
That's the worst nightmare of every parent, babe. You don't want to find out that it's your child that is actually the troublemaker.
So you need to balance. You need to balance your thinking and your rationale to say, well, he could be bullied by someone else, but he could also be bullying someone else, right? So you have to observe and see who is the alpha male in his group of friends and all of that. And one of the things we also did was, you know, we talked to them about what bullying really is. I remember that conversation where we said bullying it comes out of a place of a lot of things, but most prominently is around confidence. When the kid who's bullying does what he does, is out of a place of he lacks self-confidence.
Something's going on there.
He tries to throw it's like maybe like gum. He tries to throw it around, and for whoever it sticks on, that's where the bully focuses his attention. So we told him to be able to stand up for himself and speak, and not just walk away sometimes. So of course, walk away sometimes when, you know, if your actions will even make it worse. So we talked about that's why bullying typically happens, because, you know, there are certain times it's common, like, the kids are a lot bigger than I am. How is it that they lack self-confidence? But self-confidence doesn't have anything to do with how tall or how big you are. So some of those conversations, it'd be interesting to know that a kid of 9 is actually reasoning to that level. So this is some practical tips that you can use to engage your kids for sure.
Absolutely. And I agree with that. Get involved in the school. Like when they call for volunteers, like sometimes when they say the kids are putting together a show, or they're looking for parents to volunteer to go on like field trips with kids. If you can, volunteer and go. Not just because you want to see your kids in their elements in school. You want to register like a presence with the school. Register like I am an involved parent. We should all be involved in how our kids are doing in their schoolwork and everything. But when it comes to the actual presence in the school, if you can, show up. That's the truth. Because there's a certain stereotype. It's almost like kids from certain demographics, they don't get enough parental attention. The kids don't get enough love because the parents are not involved. We're trying to break those stereotypes. So if you can show up in school, show up. If you can volunteer and be involved, you can actually serve in your kid's school as an advisor in that capacity of, oh, we're trying to do this and we need input from parents. You can actually be involved in those decisions. Okay, and time has come for us to stop shying away from these things and pretend that, oh no, it does not involve people like me. If your kid is in that school, it definitely involves you.
Yeah.
So we want to start to take up more of these responsibilities, create more visibility for yourself in your kid's school. That's going to go a long way in helping. It will give you an understanding of how to tackle certain things when they happen.
Yeah.
Okay?
You know, there's one thing that we learned from Praise Forway. You know, the DNA of your child, right? One of the things that we haven't done it yet, but one of the things that we're going to do in the next classes that they go into is write out who our child is.
Like a user's manual.
Yeah, like a user's manual of this is who this child is. And this is how you can care for this child while he or she is in your custody. That way you know the boundaries for which this child is, who the identity of this child is from a parent's view. I think that's critical. So we write it out and we will give it to the next teacher to say, hey, this is who Jeremy is. This is how you can parent this kid. Sorry, this is how kids can teach this kid. And these are the quick wins and these are the areas that you can pay more attention to. I think it makes the life of the teacher
a lot easier.
So that user's manual is amazing. So,
but as a parent, you can't do that if you don't get training. Just saying, so we have now come back to the point where parents, we have to start getting comfortable with talking to people. We have to get comfortable with seeking therapy to say, hey, I don't know this thing. How can I tackle this conversation? Very important. We have to be more open and embrace these things. Be more open. Embrace training. If you know a professional, like Praise for Always my go-to for everything. When it comes to all things marriage and parenting, if I have 10,000 questions, that's one person I know I can confidently go to. And you guys, some of the courses on his website are free. Not everything you have to pay for. So go and check it out. Start from there. Start from the free ones. If you find that you need more customized help, then go ahead and reach out to him for something more personalized. But because guys, the gain in the long term is going to be far greater than any amount of money that you're going to pay now to get this training. So that's very important. I wasn't even thinking about that. So thank you for steering us in that direction. Another thing that we try to do to tackle these conversations is do things together as a family. Build memories together as a family. Do things away from school. Do things extracurricular. Because one way I find that kids get picked on is when it seems like everybody is sharing similar experiences and your kids have nothing to say. As vain almost as it sounds, you don't want your kids to be the only one in the park that cannot relate to the experiences of everybody else. So while kids here are talking about, oh, I went to the lake with my grandparents to go fishing, we're not there yet. Your kids cannot relate with that, right? They just sit down and they watch.
So you don't want... What are you saying? We should start
Let's go and buy a lake. Go and buy a cabin. We have to start building memories with our kids so that when they're in those parks and people are saying, I went to the lake with my grandfather to go and fish, it may not be going fishing with grandparents. For them, it might just be something else. Oh no, my family and I drove to whatever other lake. We didn't go fishing, but we had a picnic. I played football with my father in the park, or my mom and I, or something. Give them something to be able to add to conversations like that. This now comes to the importance of building community. If you have followed me on this channel, you guys know that I always talk about don't isolate yourself. You need to build a support system. You need to build your own community. Beyond just the support that they provide, you're going to be building experiences for the kids as well. So imagine that 2 or 3 families come together, you all go for a picnic, drive outside of the city, go to the lake and just spend the day together with other people. That's building memories. When they come back to school, they have something to say. We're approaching summer now. We can do a lot better than we're doing in exploring our province, in exploring our cities. There are so many things around us in this province that we have not explored. So many. You can start from there. It doesn't have to be the most expensive things. Do you understand what I mean? So as we're approaching summer now, make a conscious effort to make sure you're building beautiful memories with your family so that when people are saying, this is what I did for summer, your children will have something to say. For some things, it might just be extracurricular. Go and register them in swimming. Go and register them in soccer. So when people are talking about going to play hockey, they'll say, me too, I'm going swimming. Or me too, I'm going to play basketball. Hand them the weapons to use to fight back when people are trying to pick on them with things like that.
I think it's not just registering them, but trying to be a part of it.
Be involved in it, yeah.
Something just occurred to me that For us, you immigrate and come here, and you need to adapt to the culture, and probably have to start from, sometimes from the beginning again. To be honest, there's a lot of adjusting for us as parents, and and all of that, and we think that's just where the bulk of the work is. But for kids, depending on, I think I touched this earlier, depending on the age, it can be hard too. I think you need to start engaging them as early as possible. And for the older kids who come, maybe they're 15, 16, that have a sense of identity
already,
they can be cool with it, like, okay, well, I stand out, that's fine, I'll just do my thing. But at some point it starts to be very clear to them that, oh, okay, people are actually different, and it seems like I'm getting different kind of treatment. So at both spectrums, you need to be able to look for a way to target those situations and start talking to your kids.
Yeah.
There's no manual to do it. You just need to let them know, and importantly too, let them know that you struggle with it. Because sometimes your kids try to be brave in front of you and don't say the things that are actually happening. But if they see the vulnerability first in daddy, who's supposed to be their idol, and mommy, who's supposed to be the perfect person, if they see mommy says, like, I struggle with this thing too, I think that it's easy for them to come out and say, yeah, well, mom, me as well, I am also dealing with stuff like this, right?
I like that conversation about vulnerability, which means that you as a parent, it's not even conversation you should run away from. So it comes back to that initial idea of you have to be open to confront this thing. It's a difficult conversation. I mean, think about it. Like, you have a child who's, say you move here, your child is 15. They are going to, for the first time in their whole lives, 15 years, realize that they are black when you move to a country like Canada. Nobody talks about race in a country like Nigeria. We all look the same, right? And then suddenly your 15-year-old who is excited to experience life in a different country suddenly gets into class, and you realize that, okay, I am black. Mm-hmm. Because when you look at everybody else, you are visibly different. We need to start to ask our kids specifically, like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Does it bother you? Do you feel like you get treated differently because of this? Now, this is not saying you're going to be selling them ideas. It's just to find out how exactly are you already feeling. Does it bother you? Does it make you feel different? Do you feel like you're less than because you look a certain way? We must be able to confront those conversations head on. Because whether we like it or not, at 15, 16, children are going to experience some kind of confusion when it comes to identity, when it comes to confidence, especially and things like that. Age, it's already going to come with confusion. To now throw the mix of unfair treatment or discrimination in all of that, it can take a toll on kids.
Or your accent or something.
Exactly.
Right? Sometimes people are just innocently
ignorant.
Innocent. And and you take the time to, educate them and say,
where necessary, or not all the time, because you're not an elementary school teacher.
No, I mean, you can tell when someone they just don't know. Because sometimes, I've been in situations where someone has just tried to start the conversation on a very not palatable topic, and like, did you just
remember this conversation?
You heard someone say this and you thought it was a general thing.
Yeah, thought it was a nice conversation.
We were nice. It was a church event, so we didn't swear. We didn't.
Holy Spirit.
We just we
the
touched
Holy
him
Spirit
with
took over.
A brotherly love, and Marina. I was trying to hold Marina. Marina wanted to pounce on. I said, Holy Spirit, help. In that case, I think it's just. Be able to be emotionally intelligent to know that the person doesn't really know. There's so many things. Again, there's so many ways to do it. I'm sure we will love to know how
other parents are doing it as well.
Handle things like that. And again, it all comes around to understanding your kids, knowing who they are. Mm-hmm. There are some things that our daughter would say she's fine with, and if my son said he was fine with, I'm like, no. This one always likes to talk. This one, she's fine. She can walk away from it. So I think it's just understanding who your kids really are and knowing how to support them. So useful tips, but we're open to learning. For sure.
Okay. As we start to round this up, guys, one thing I'd like all of us to remember, us parents generally, if we want to talk about arming our kids, talking to them about bullying, about discrimination, and how they can stand up for themselves, just know that your house is going to be the first practicing ground. for kids to stand up for themselves.
Yeah.
For kids to exercise their self-identity and self-worth, the house is going to be the first place where they will practice. So just know that you cannot fight bullying, you cannot teach against bullying if you are modeling bullying in your house.
Yeah.
If your child cannot stand up to you or be able to even have a voice at home, just know that they are not going to have a voice outside. They're going to practice it with you. If you tell them stand up for yourself, it should not just be stand up for yourself outside this house, but inside this house I am Lord and Master. It won't work.
I'll give you an example.
Why do I feel like you're about to shade somebody?
No, I'm not about to shade you.
Me? I was saying somebody.
No. Daphne,
our daughter,
was upset about something. Yes, was upset about something, and I asked her like, "What happened?" With her brother, of course. What happened? Do you know what she told me?
What?
I don't want to talk about it. Like, are you sure? Like, no, Daddy, I don't want to talk about it. Like, okay. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And I never actually heard her say that before, but I respected the fact that she can be in control of her emotions and be guarding, even if we were her parents, right? So it's interesting, and maybe sometimes you tell the kids to do something and tell you why. Like, why? That's a good question. Why? So, some of those things, you can't be the bully. You should model, that open environment where they can be confident with you first.
Comfortable to talk,
this is where they practice the good, and you want to make sure this is where they practice the bad as well.
True. And open your eyes. Let's not, to every parent, your kid is the best. But in actual sense, the bully is somebody's child.
Yeah.
And sometimes your child can exhibit some things in school that they don't do at home.
Yeah.
If you want to face it, sometimes your kids can do some things in school and they'll say, wait, what? Whose child? Me, my child, God forbid. But we know that those things happen. So you want to pay extra attention. If you as much as sense that, this child lied about something, tackle it.
Yeah.
It means they can do something in school and come home and lie to you. So for small habits like that, don't downplay any habits that you don't want to see grow and mature in your kids, right? So pay attention, be involved, talk to them, respect them. Like my kids can, I've said it on the channel, they will call me out. They will call me out. My kids, we are now learning to look at them, even though they are 9 and 7, they are individuals on their own, with their own wishes, with their own preferences. There are many times where I pick out things for my kids to wear, and by the time I come back, they have switched it up. Like, no, mommy, I prefer the style to be like this. And I'm learning how to back off and just step back and say, as far as you're going to school with clothes, you're not naked, that's fine.
I like what you said there. Making sure that we teach them about bullies and making sure we also make sure that they aren't
the bullies.
It's a hard pill, but it's essential. The other thing, as we're rounding up again, that just comes to mind that's important is a sense of identity. I think it's critical that our kids understand that we have an identity. And what I mean by that is, how do you talk about your home country? Because they're always very curious, like, where did we move from? Why did we move? I think you have to be very careful about what your kids hear around.
And how it's portrayed.
Portrayed, because they'll be asked one day, where are you from? Okay, I'm from Canada. No, where are you really from? And they'll be stuck because they don't want to say that country that they've heard mom and dad always bash and say it's the worst place to be. They don't want to go back there. So I think you have to be careful to protect that identity. Yes, things probably don't work well, and I don't think there's any country that's perfect, but you have to portray your home country in a way that makes them proud to identify with it, even if they haven't been there.
True.
To be honest. So I think that's very important.
It can't be all bad. Like, even though things are not working where you come from, or you move for whatever reason, where you're from originally cannot be 100% bad. For the parts of the country that work, for the parts of your culture and your heritage that you're proud of, hand it down to your kids. There are times where my children come to tell me, okay, so how did you play when you were kids? What were the things you played with when you were younger? And we'll talk to them about it, and they'll be so fascinated, so excited, so happy to want to hear those stories. Tell me, what was it like when you were a kid? Because again, when we moved here, our kids were 3 and 2. They had barely experienced Nigeria, which is our home country, before we moved. So right now, they have spent more time in Canada than they have in Nigeria. So what they depend on, what they know about Nigeria right now is mainly what they hear from us. You know, so we have to hand that down with pride, because it is always going to be a part of your children's heritage, even if they are born in Canada or whatever country it is you live in. Your home country, your place of birth is always going to be a part of your children's heritage. So give them something that they can be proud of, that can influence their sense of identity and belonging. You don't want to take that away from them, because I've had stories of people who threaten their children. So if you do this, I'm sending you back. A place that should be a place of pride is now portrayed to your children as a place that should be feared. Like if you go there, it's the ultimate punishment. Don't do that. It may look like you're just trying to pass a point right now, but it's going to do more harm than good in the long run. So make sure you're handing them something to be proud of and not something to be afraid of.
Yep.
In all of this, guys, in this very long conversation that we've had, if you're not taking anything away from this video, take away the importance of building communities. Not just for yourself, but for your kids. Build a community where if you don't know what to do, you have places where you can go and you get good counsel. Recently, somebody walked up to me with a kid and said, I've been trying to explain something to my daughter. Maybe if she hears it from you or another person, it will make more sense. And when he tried to explain to me what he was trying to say, the father was right, but the child didn't get it. So in that moment, I held that close to myself and said, you know, actually, what I think your father is trying to say is this. This is what happens. This is what could go wrong. And this is what your father is trying to prevent. And by the end of the conversation, the girl was all smiles again. That was something small. It was something very minor. But just knowing that you have that place where you can go and say, you know what, since you can't hear me, maybe another person who we both trust can pass this same message. That's the importance of communities. That's the importance of having a support system that you can trust to give you wise and godly counsel.
The last word would be, you can't effect this change in our kids if you don't heal yourself as a parent. Because there are some ways that we were parented that it wasn't good. I think we need to heal from some of that stuff before we're able to see that, you know what, there's probably a different way to do this. And that's where, you know, it gives you the confidence to be vulnerable, to say, you know what I knew for the last 35 years is actually wrong. That's not the right way to do it. So when he or she says, Daddy, why should I do this? It's not them standing up to you. It's them standing up for themselves.
True that.
Because you know, in this society, and any society for that matter, it's peer pressure. It's huge. It's huge. It just takes, God forbid, it takes one wrong
influence,
to just go down all the drain. So it starts with you as a parent. It's hard to know that there's some things you have to unlearn, because we feel we all have it together. So I think it's worth going through that journey of discovering yourself first and healing from any damage that you probably had, so you can be better for yourself, and then for your spouse, of course, and for your kids.
Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video, guys. I know it was long, but it was absolutely necessary for us to handle this. For other parents who are living in countries other than their home countries, and you have had to have these conversations with your kids, how did you tackle it? At what age did you have the conversations? And is it an ongoing conversation, or was it something you just did one-off and it was fine? So please, as usual, leave your comments, your opinions, your points of views, your questions in the comment section below, and we can have healthy dialogue about this. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching today's video. Thank you, Mr. Eteng, for joining us. You're going to come back soon, we hope.
Yes, definitely.
Happy Easter, everyone. I hope you have a safe and an amazing celebration. And until we come your way in the next video, hopefully that'll be soon for him to come back. Until we come your way in the next video, it is Marina and Mr. Eteng saying... You know how we close it now?
Say it again.
Say thank you, and the way I close the videos.
So thank you for joining us today, and
have an awesome day.
Have an awesome day. Bye.
Bye. After how many years, you still cannot close my channel? Okay.